Tell me a little bit about the history of this car.
So what you see here is a 1929 Mercedes S-Type 680, which means a 6.8 liter six-cylinder with a supercharger. The S stands for sport, which means this was a sports car at the time. The term was really not even a term so much. This was the fastest Mercedes ever built at the time, well, aside from racing models. And it was the most powerful car in the world, which means 140 horsepower without the supercharger and 180 with. Some numbers will differ there, saying that it's 220. We've never had it on the dyno, so I tend to go with the conservative estimate. Driving it yesterday, it's fast for its times. This is a wonderful car to drive. It's an amazing experience. It is a time capsule or a time machine, if you will. But in layman's terms, it drives like a farm-all tractor at speed on the roads. So it's very heavy steering. It's a very heavy car. Shifting is very heavy. Heavy is the key word here. Heavy pedal play, heavy shifting, heavy braking. Everything is heavy, and you don't want to get it wrong because it's also top heavy. You get a wheel off the road, you're probably going to die. So
the color combination, how did it happen?
The color combination you see here is Curzon blue, or perhaps peacock blue, with polished aluminum. And these were the family racing colors for the horse stable that Lord Howe's father, the Honorable Righteous Fourth Earl Howe. And of course they didn't have cars then, so people raced horses. This is maybe where he got his racing itch. But yeah, very unique color combination that he painted all of his cars in, and representative of his family history. Lord Howe was a car freak, as many of us are, and he always had to have the latest, greatest thing. This was the latest, greatest thing in 1929, and don't quote me exactly, but let's say 1931, the Mercedes SS came out, which was an evolution of the body, chassis, motor, everything, an upgrade, another 40, 50 horsepower, a better, faster, improved car. So he had one of those, and this car got set aside and was sold on to a person who became the first president of the Mercedes Club of the world.
And tell me the story how it was found. You said it was in a basement for a long time, or in a museum.
So the car went through a couple other hands over the years and was sold to Tony Hullman, who of course owned Indy Motor Speedway, and he has a museum there where this car was displayed from time to time, but most of its life, over 50, 60 years, it lived in the basement of that museum, which is really quite a treasure trove of cars, and it's not open to the public. This car lived there with many other famous cars over the years, and we were able to arrange a purchase agreement to buy this and another car called the Prince Heinrich.
And what state was it in when it was?
It was in a very original, preserved state, which made it a very cool car still. It ran well, it drove well, but when my owner when he buys something, he looks into the history, finds all the details, and he knew what he had. He knew the history of this car. So we found photos of it in its original form. The glorious boat tail, the polished aluminum. This had been painted over. The boat tail had been removed. There was 2 spare tires, so it was a more functional touring car. At one point, this car had a trailer hitch on it. Lord Howe actually had the trailer hitch on it because he used to tow his race cars around Europe and race them, and this car had the power to do that. So seeing how fabulous the car was and how unique it was, we restored it back to that original form. But that wasn't any simple task, because you might know that there was only black and white photos in that era. So how do you even tell that this is polished? You had to capture the right angle to see the boat tail on the back. And we found a photo where the sun was glinting off the car. And we were like, why is that? And then, one detail reveals another, and we found that this is all polished aluminum. So these factors said, the car needs to be restored to its original form, because that's just too grand. This is not just some S-Type. This is Lord Howe's S-Type, and it was a unique and grand car.
Well, I was down at Pebble Beach when it was being judged, and won. It was my favorite car for the week, but when it got delivered and it was in the horse stables, and I was like, oh, this car's my favorite car. And then lo and behold, it wins the whole show.
Well, I think that tends to be one of the factors there is, Best in Show is not only a judged, result, but it's also the sentiment of the crowd. How are people reacting to it? There's an emotional response. And even if a car's not perfect, which this one is perfect, that emotional response, I think, gets into how judging is done, and it's a factor. If you can have something that is very perfect but maybe boring.
Yeah.
You could have a perfect Yugo, and it's probably not going to win Best of Show unless it's a Yugo show. But you have something that's truly grand and presented at the highest level. It's really a candidate for sure.